Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome to episode 49 of Teach Play Disc Golf. I'm your host Antonio and I am so excited to have you with me here today. I was editing episode 48 a couple weeks ago and I realized that the mic was kind of a little far away from me, so I'm going to try to have it a little bit closer to me this time to help make the audio a little bit better, a little bit clearer. So I apologize for that. If you listen to the entirety of that episode, I really appreciate it. But I am so excited for today's episode because we're talking about something that I've touched on before. I'm sure I've touched on it in this podcast, but also on my channel and on Instagram, and I recently posted about this, and I've been talking about it recently because it's kind of been on the forefront of my mind. We're going to talk about rounding today, and I'm really excited to talk about that because it's always good to remind ourselves as we're improving our disc golf game, as we're getting better, how to make the small incremental changes that are going to impact our game. And so I'm excited to talk about that. We do have a disc review today, and we'll be reviewing the Axiom Envy, and I'm very, very excited to review this disc. This disc has technically been reviewed before on this channel a couple episodes ago relative to episode 49. I think it was episode 44 with Yanni, Spin Doctor. Sorry about that. The Spin Doctor. Yeah, we reviewed the Axiom Envy there, but here's the thing. At that point in that episode, that was June or July of 2024, I had never thrown the Envy. I was never really interested in it simply because I liked the Bullet, I liked other approach discs, and there was just no need for me to have a disc that was kind of in the middle. So we reviewed it because it was it is Yanni's favorite disc, and it's a really good disc. I mean, we all know the Holy Shot, okay? But I had never really thrown one before, and so it was a disc review that was kind of led by him. And so this time, we're going to do a disc review, obviously led by me, because he's not here with me to talk about it, but I've actually been throwing one for a while now. And I really want to share my thoughts on that, kind of coming from the perspective of someone who's actually thrown it and can talk to you all about that. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everybody. So like I said, we're going to talk about rounding, and rounding is a big problem in disc golf for a lot of people. Whether you have been playing for one day or you've been playing for 5 to 10 years or even more, you see people out on the course who round. Now, most players who are actively playing and competing and they're watching videos, they're listening to podcasts like this one, trying to help them get better at disc golf, rounding slowly eases itself out of their form. They work on it, they know how to improve it. But people who just play super casually once every month or a couple of months, you see a lot. But for all intents and purposes, we want to focus on you, the disc golfer who's playing regularly, who's trying to improve their game, who's trying to take the next step in their form, which is going to take the next step in their distance and all those kinds of things. And for a lot of players, no matter how long you've been playing, there are elements of rounding still in our form. So what is rounding? Rounding is when you throw around your body instead of on a straight line. Now, those two things can't happen at the same time. In order to throw a straight line from extension to release, and then as the disc goes down the fairway, your body has to be out of the way. But a lot of times, players get their body in the way. And that's where rounding comes from, because we end up getting the disc behind us. And so the only way for it to get to its release is for us to move the disc around our body, creating a circular motion. And if we held on to the disc, what would become a complete circle, it really just ends up being about a semicircle, a half circle, okay? And so that is rounding. It really is a reflection of the path that the disc takes from extension to release. And we want it to be a straight line, as straight as possible. For a lot of players, it has some curve to it. It has some roundedness to it, okay, to use the word in the definition. Why is this bad? Well, this is bad for a lot of reasons. First, inconsistent release points. You think you're grip blocking or you early release, and it's really not those things, because those aren't true problems. If you have a linear or a straight extension to release, there are problems that come with rounding. So if you think you're grip blocking or you have an early release, it's evidence of rounding, and more rounding creates those problems. You don't have a consistent release point. The other thing is shoulder pain, okay? Because part of rounding is also throwing with the upper body, and we'll get more into that when we address how to fix it. But throwing and rounding in your backhand form, you're going to have shoulder pain, shoulder issues. You're going to feel soreness. You might even feel more than soreness, which is not very good. And I can speak as someone who's been there. So you are not alone, but I hope that you can get away from that. And then additionally, why it's bad is that it just makes disc golf not fun for a lot of the reasons listed, and many more that I'm sure that you can think of as well. But disc golf is not really fun after a while when you continue to struggle with the same things over and over and over and over and over and over, right? We want to experience getting better. We want to find ourselves improving, not just in form, but in distance and accuracy. We want to see the trends of our scores at our favorite courses slowly going down as we improve our game. And rounding is going to prevent a lot of that. Now, before we get into how to fix it, there's a little caveat here. You have heard pros talk about rounding not always being a bad thing, and this is true. Specifically when trying to throw flex shots or like Anheuser lines, Big Sky Anheisers, or even rollers. Paul Ulibarri talks about this, or has talked about this quite a bit, where trying to throw a normal straight shot, but to throw an Anheuser or to throw a roller, it's really awkward and difficult. And so he has come out and said that like, hey, rounding actually helps with that a little bit. And so rounding, if you take that advice and you work with it and you go through that, I throw a lot of, flex shots or just pure Anheisers. I prefer throwing, flat shots that turn over. But that's something that I need to eventually add to my game, is having those big turnover lines. And for someone who has tried to do it before with just throwing a straight line, he is 100% correct that throwing a turnover shot while trying to throw with your straight form, the disc just doesn't quite come out the way you want it to. And obviously, someone like him with decades of experience knows that this concept of rounding isn't 100% bad, but the issue that we're talking about in today's episode is 100% bad, because we're talking about rounding when you're trying to throw a straight shot, when you're trying to throw a hyzer, when you're just trying to throw an approach shot and you completely miss by 50 feet because you were rounding. So like, that's what we're addressing here. We're not addressing how to use rounding in like an Anheuser throw or something like that. So just wanted to get that out of the way, because I know that has been said before and I don't necessarily disagree with it. I don't have enough experience throwing big Anheisers like that and really trying to throw some flex shots, because that's never really been a part of my game. I'm more of a hyzer flip player. But yeah, so anyway, not to go back down that tangent, once I get into all that and start adding that to my game, we can revisit that conversation. But how do you fix rounding? I have 3 very simple things that we can do in concept or in theory. They're going to take some time to work on, but it's 3 things that if we all focus on it, we're going to improve our rounding. So little backstory here. Rounding used to be a big issue for me. It's improved a lot. Rounding is actually one of the reasons why I stopped throwing the backhand. I just could not figure out how to throw the backhand far. I could throw the backhand 200 feet, 250 feet, and most of the time hit my line, but I couldn't generate power. Backhand was pretty much like putters and mid-ranges, and that's it. And even then, it was a little spotty because I didn't really trust it. The moment I picked up a driver, even like an eagle, it was like right into the dirt, because I was just so scared of messing up. I would always throw it like down into the ground. It was bad. So became a big forehand dominant player, had several, 900 plus rated rounds, 930 plus rated rounds throwing only forehand. But the thing is, that wears on your body a lot when you literally can never throw a backhand even for certain shots. So that wore me out. And then I moved to Tennessee and I was like, I really need to dial this in. Now I've been working on my backhand at that time, on and off for a couple years, and on for like several months, and then off for several months. Moving to Tennessee, I was like, this is a brand new start, brand new courses. I don't have any bad memories at these courses. I don't have any just really bad muscle memory formed when trying to attack these courses. So let me start from scratch here. Almost treat everything brand new. And my disc golf game elevated so much in those 2 years in Tennessee, because my backhand improved immensely, because I had a clear mind. I hadn't thrown bad shots on these holes at these courses to know what's the miss, what's not the miss. Now, the longer I played in some of these areas, I knew what the shots, if I missed, what would happen. But I was able to really build a solid foundation using these 3 principles that we're going to talk about today. And the first is lower body initiation. Now, I know it kind of ticks some people off, or they're so tired of hearing hip engagement, lower body engagement. I'm not trying to just use different words to like trick you or anything. I'm not interested in trying to trick you, but lower body initiation, essentially what I mean by that is getting your lower body to start the throw. That is 100% the way you need to be throwing backhand, is getting that lower body initiated. It needs to be the first thing that goes. And a couple old videos of mine look at baseball in comparison to disc golf. And I studied for quite a while baseball form and batters and looked at research that was done on the best hitters and the timing of their lower body, the hips, the shoulders, the elbow, the hands, and all the timing and syncing of it. And it's essentially the same sync and timing that we see with pros. And that is what we want in our form. Now, obviously, there are variations in a baseball swing, a tennis swing, a golf swing, and a disc golf swing or a disc golf throw, right? But there are elements of timing that are very important. And all of those sports, most sports, 9% of sports, a lot of your motion, a lot of your power starts with the lower body. And so on the disc golf backhand throw, you need to start with the lower body. That's all we mean here, is just get it going with the lower body. I don't just mean X step. Okay, that helps, but I actually don't encourage an X step when you're really learning the basics of the backhand, or you're really trying to break down your form and rebuild it from scratch. You want to start in a standstill. You want to start with a 1 step. You want to start, then go to the 3 step like I throw, and you can kind of stay there in 3 step. I plan on staying there for a very long time. I don't really miss the old traditional X step. I like my 3 step approach. It helps me initiate that lower body more consistently. So we want to do that. And how we do that, there's a lot of schools of thought, okay? But essentially what we want to do is, in very simple layman's terms, start with our feet pointed away from the target. Then we want our knees to kind of come together. Not touch, but like as we're getting, the knees coming together is indicative of the hips getting engaged. Okay, so think of it like that. As your hips are rotating together, because you can't just rotate one hip, okay? Your hips rotating together, your knees are going to kind of come in, and your plant foot is still going to be pointed away from the target. From here, the rest of your body is going to follow, because where your hips lead, your torso will follow. But the thing is, the timing is going to be slightly off. Your hips will always, or should always, be forward just a little bit of the rest of your body. And then as your torso is lagging behind, that arm, that throwing arm, is going to lag behind as well. And it's this cascading effect that I talked about a few years ago with Cade Caps, both here on Teach Play Disc Golf, but also in an older video on Gladiator Disc Golf on YouTube, talking about those 11 tips, the cascading effect, and basically creating this trail. And all that starts with lower body initiation. Now, I alluded to it there just a second ago, but the second thing on how to fix it is that neutral upper body. As we're getting that lower body initiated, as we're getting those hips engaged, as everything is starting to move forward, much more quickly than you're learning right now, and much more quickly than I can explain it, we want to keep that upper body neutral. This is going to mean maybe slightly different things to people, but essentially the reason I use the terminology neutral upper body is because the last thing we want is to get our shoulders swinging forward. The last thing we want is to get our shoulders swinging forward. And so that's why I use the terminology neutral upper body. We want to keep things fluid. We don't want our shoulders to catch up to our hips, because the moment the shoulders catch up to the hips while the disc is still in hand, we lose our power and we start to round. So we want to keep that neutral upper body, keep that neutral spine. And really the way that I have taught myself to do this and how I've coached others on it is that we want to see that disc come across our chest as the rest of our throw continues. If you're looking down the fairway before you see the disc, you have rotated your upper body. It is no longer neutral. We want all the power we're generating with our lower body to go through our upper body, into our arm, into the disc. And a neutral upper body is going to help us do that. The third thing is a proper brace leg. You can have everything perfect up to this point. But if your brace leg breaks, or I don't mean like you actually break your leg, but like the brace leg just doesn't hold up on the throw, you're going to lose all that power. So what does a broken brace leg look like? It looks like one where you spin and fall over or almost fall over. It looks like one where your knee is really bent. And there are times on soft throws that your leg won't fully extend or get close to full like extension. But for the most part, if your knee is completely bent, it's kind of a broken brace because you're not able to fully put your momentum into your brace, into your foot, into your leg. You want all of that to get sort of locked up in your leg. And the other thing to look at is when you get a recording of yourself from the side, you want to be able to look at all the timing, right, from the side. Are you vertically stacked on your plant foot, or are you at like a 45-degree angle, let's say? Okay, so for those of you that are looking at video here, if my elbow is my foot and my fist is my hip, I want to be at a, 30 to 45-degree angle. If I'm perfectly upright, your momentum's going to carry you forward on the throw and you're going to fall over and break. And obviously, if you're too far out, you're not going to be able to really support yourself. That back foot's never going to come off the ground and you're not really going to get as much power. But we need to have that foot out so that way we can come around and rotate around it. But we do not want to be vertically stacked on it. And a lot of that is just training our body to trust and fall into that brace. So those are the three things on how to fix rounding. We want to have that lower body initiation. We want to have that neutral upper body, and we want to have a proper brace. Okay, so for our disc grip, I hope you guys found that tip super helpful. If you want more information, you can check out other episodes here on Teach Play Disc Golf. You can head to my YouTube channel, Gladiator Disc Golf, and look up the disc golf tips playlist, and you can find a lot of content there. That channel is mainly revolves around disc golf tips and helping you improve your game. If you want more immediate feedback, go ahead and jump into my Discord and you can drop in a video. You can get some feedback from everyone there. We love helping everybody improve our games, and I will say, as somebody who's been observing a lot of others, it's a very good community for that, and people are very kind and helpful. But without further ado, let's get into our disc review with the Axiom Envy. Okay, so in case you don't know the Axiom Envy, it is one of the most popular putters in the game. Its flight numbers are 3 speed, 3 glide, 0 turn, and 2 fade. I will say from my experience, that is fairly accurate for a brand new Proton Envy out of the box. I would say most Envies are going to be that stable, unless of course you have a lot of power or you're getting a base plastic Envy. But even most base plastics start off with the stability that the disc says. They just beat in faster. So one of the cool things about an Envy that a lot of people love is that it starts off overstable and it wears into nice and straight, and you can even start to get some turn out of an Envy. Because it's a putter, because it's that slower speed, you can start to overpower that speed, especially as it gets some seasoning and wear on it, and really experience the whole variety, the whole flight path that you want with one mold, and you can have a bunch of them in the bag. So the Envy has been very, very cool for that. From one of the biggest reasons I was not really wanting to throw the Envy is because I was throwing the Bullet or the Jester Disc Golf Love, and that disc is a more neutral Envy. It's never going to be as overstable as it, but I was like, this is my go-to throwing putter, and it has been for years. The last thing I want is to mess that up and take throws away because this disc is just so reliable for me. But a couple months ago, I finally decided I need to start throwing something, because between whether it was the Jokery or now the Wild thing and the Love, there was just a gap there that was really becoming more and more evident. And I didn't necessarily need that shot every single time, but there were times where it was like clearly a putter shot that I was having to really like throw the Love on hyzer and hope it didn't glide too far straight before trying to fade over. There were a couple times around where it would be useful to have a disc in that slot. So I finally decided to throw the Envy, and it has been everything I have wanted. The disc is ridiculously similar in hand feel to the Love. So if you throw the Jester Love, the Mint Bullet, the MVP Atom, okay, all those discs are the same mold. All right, they literally are all made by MVP. They're all the same mold, just different companies' names on it, different PDGA approvals, but they're all the same. And TSA Praxis, Thought Space Athletics Praxis, all the same disc. Great disc. That's why all these companies want it, right? And the Envy feels so similar to those. I will say it feels a little bit flatter on the top because of the gyro plates. So the Atom's going to feel like the most identical to the Envy, and it feels slightly taller. But it has such a similar hand feel. It makes it so easy to throw because I don't feel like I have to change a lot of things. And then when I step up in stability to the Wild thing is nice and flat, although it has a little bit more of a aggressive bead and wing. But it's just really nice to go Love and Envy and have a very similar hand feel. So if you throw those discs, you'll really like the Envy if you've never checked one out. I will say that in this last episode, or the episode before, I talked about the tournament I played in, and the Envy came in clutch multiple times in that round. In fact, 2 of the 3 times I threw it, and twice on the same hole in both rounds, I birdied it with like no more than a 10-foot putt. And it was a tricky line with some wind, but the Envy just has enough stability to either hold in that crosswind and then fade back a little, or if I threw the second shot on hyzer, it flipped up, drifted just enough to get around the tree, and then faded 3 feet under the basket. No, actually less than that. It was like a foot under the basket. Okay. Great throwing putter. It has great stability. I have a couple beat up ones that Jake has sent me, and I've picked up some others as well. And so I haven't messed around too much with throwing them out on a course because I don't want to lose the loves because I just have so much history with that disc. But definitely a great feeling disc, and I definitely am confident in the Envy being in the bag for a long time. It may even eventually become my go-to throwing putter, but for right now, it has been exceptional. It has great glide, great stability. I haven't tried forehanding it. That's really what the Wild thing is for. The Wild thing is just so nice and overstable for backhand and forehand. The Envy isn't even overlapping with that, honestly. So definitely been enjoying throwing the Envy. It's been a lot of fun. I'm so glad I've been able to actually talk about throwing it and truly be able to recommend it to you all who haven't tried it out yet, just because I've been so impressed with it. And it's been something that's really helped my game. I love throwing putters. And so I don't mind having 3 different putters that I can throw off the tee on an approach shot, whatever it is, because I'm so comfortable throwing them. And it just makes my game feel so much better, and I can execute so much more. So if you want to try an Axiom Envy, head to GottaGoGottaThrow.com and use discount code GladiatorDiscGolf, or you can go to the link in the description where you see GottaGoGottaThrow.com/Gladiator, and that will automatically put the discount code in for you when you use that. That saves you a little bit of money, and you actually support me. I get some kickback as well. So GottaGoGottaThrow has been a great affiliate. I've really enjoyed working with them, and thank you all who have purchased things from them and use my code. You are directly supporting me, so I always appreciate you, and it helps me do more content like this. That is all that I have for you today, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, we talked about rounding, okay, and we want to fix rounding with lower body initiation, neutral upper body, and a proper brace leg. And we talked about one of the most popular putters in the game, the Axiom Envy, and so I hope you go ahead and check that out at GottaGoGottaThrow.com/Gladiator. But make sure you go out this week, everybody. Teach someone how to play. I am meeting up with one of my Discord members, Ryan, this week. So super excited to meet up with him and play some disc golf. Make sure you go out and teach someone, take someone new to the course, teach them how to play, give them a disc, let them learn why we love this weird game called disc golf. Take them out. Make sure you also go and play. I'm looking forward to a couple days this week of playing some disc golf with some good friends. And that's all I have for you today, everybody. Until next time, have a great round.